The Supreme Court handed down a couple of decisions this morning. The most consequential, I think, was the abortion decision, where they ruled 5-3 that the Texas law places an undue burden on women trying to obtain legal abortions and therefore is unconstitutional. Now, what's particularly interesting about this is that the court they also, by the way, let Bob McDonald out of jail, which is a whole another rant. But that the court in their argument. What did I do with that? Got it around here someplace. Here it is. The court in their argument, they said, and I quote, Casey requires courts to consider the burdens a law imposes on abortion access together with the benefits those laws confer. This is from the decision. Right? And what it's saying here is that, hang on just a second, get to the last page. Then they're quoting Casey, a statute which, while furthering a valid state interest, has the effect of placing a substantial obstacle in the path of women's choice, cannot be considered a permissible means of serving its legitimate ends. But basically what they're saying is that this law does not comply with with a previous Supreme Court decision. In other words, we, the Supreme Court, we are the final arbiters, the supreme law of the land. Now, broadly speaking, I have a problem with that argument. But that said, this is the system that we have. I mean, I could argue all day long that Marbury versus Madison in 1803 was, wrongly decided, as Jefferson suggested, that judicial review, the court, reviewing the constitutionality of laws, pretty much did not happen during the first 70 years of our republic. In fact, it only happened twice, in Marbury versus Madison in 1803 and in 1856 in Dred Scott. That was it until the Civil War. And, it was only after the Civil War that the Supreme Court started, quote, interpreting constitutionality. And now it's pretty much all they do. And so what has happened is that the Supreme Court has become the most powerful of the three branches of government. They've made themselves that way. But you and I don't get to vote for the Supreme Court, except through our vote for president, because the president appoints or nominates the Supreme Court members or appoints them, whatever the word is. And the Senate then, advises and consents. And so by voting for the president and voting for the Senate. So this, once again, I think this demonstrates what a big deal this election is. And to that point, Elizabeth Warren and Hillary Clinton were campaigning together this morning for the very first time. And this with clip number 1 here. This is Elizabeth Warren basically defining Donald Trump. Here it is.
Donald Trump says he'll make America great again. It's right there. No, it's stamped on the front of his goofy hat. You want to see Goofy? Look at him in that hat. But when Donald Trump says great, I ask, great for who exactly? Yeah. For millions of kids struggling to pay for an education, for millions of seniors barely surviving on Social Security, for families that don't fly to Scotland to play golf. When Donald Trump says he'll make America great, he means make it even greater for rich guys just like Donald Trump.
And see, that's the problem. She's absolutely right, first of all. And secondly, this is the collapse of what we're watching right now, what we're seeing around the world. And you're seeing it now with, frankly, with our presidential campaigns. We just saw it with the Brexit vote. and we're seeing it in 100 other ways, in other smaller ways, is the rejection of essentially neoliberalism. We have gone through, we being basically Western society, over the last 50 years, the last 100 years, 150 years, we've gone through two kind of major upheavals or major changes. The Industrial Revolution, where we started making things, and then in the 1980s and 90s, we came to at least here in the United States and much of Europe, came to a conclusion that, making things is fine. And having, workers who have good paying factory jobs, manufacturing stuff, it's great, and it's built a strong middle class, and, it's all good stuff. And there's a couple of countries, by the way, that decided, man, we're not going to get rid of this, like Germany. They ferociously protect their manufacturing sector. There's more German-made stuff in your iPhone than there is Chinese, for example. I mean, both in terms of dollar value and individual parts. But, the rest of Europe and the United States, they said, okay, we can do away with those manufacturing jobs. Those are the old, kind of, they're not as good as a new jobs, right? Those are the old blue-collar jobs. We need to go to white-collar jobs and pink-collar jobs or whatever. And so they came up with this idea of basically financializing everything and saying, our principal product now is going to be financial products rather than manufactured products. And we'll let China and Vietnam and countries like that manufacture products for us. And we'll make the money. And the result of that, and this was basically called the new liberalism of the 1980s and 1990s, the third way, all this kind of stuff. And it hasn't been working out for working people. The promise was, okay, yeah, you're going to lose those manufacturing jobs. We're going to send, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of factories off to Asia. But don't worry, because the new jobs that you're going to get are going to be so much better. And they're not. And they haven't been. And so what is happening is that, people are basically revolting against this system. And the challenge that we have is how do you do a revolt without getting snookered? I mean, the people who are who are voting for Brexit, in many cases, what they've been told is, no, it's not the banksters, it's not the neoliberal policies that have ruined your life and ruined your middle class. It's those immigrants. And this is how these right-wing movements rise up, is when the existing institutions fail, as they're doing right now. And the demagogues succeed in saying, see that failure? It was caused by those people, rather than pointing out that it was the elites themselves.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.